The Museum of International Folk Art invites you to experience the living tradition of a Southern American icon in pottery of the U.S. South. Hey guys, so we are here with Laura Addison and we are talking about pottery of the U.S. South. And that's kind of a specific style. So what characterizes Southern pottery?
Well, the pots here are from North Carolina and Georgia. And as people look around the show, what they'll notice is that they are very simple forms.
Okay.
They're utilitarian forms from an agrarian time.
Okay.
There are churns, there are jugs, there are crocks, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And so they were very functional forms.
Okay.
And there's a real lack of embellishment, intentionally so. They're what the curator, Karen Duffy, likes to call plain-spoken pots.
Plain-spoken pots.
Okay.
Now, as you see behind us, Berlin Craig and Kim Ellington, obviously these two men they're very important to this style. So tell us a little bit about them. One was the mentor, one was the student, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
But not in such a defined fashion. So they were both from an area called the Catawba Valley, which is in North Carolina. And it's sort of in between Charlotte and Asheville, North Carolina, just to situate people. And Berlin Craig was born in 1914, and he learned in his early teens how to do pottery. He is credited with reviving this Southern pottery tradition of the Catawba Valley in the 1970s. So in keeping with the tradition of these apprenticeships, which is how a lot of this knowledge was passed down in the American South. It was by apprenticeships and it was through families.
Okay.
So Berlin Craig, he taught Kim Ellington. Kim Ellington went to, he studied at an art school, and then he grew up in the Catawba Valley, but yet he never knew anything about the clay tradition there. He started discovering some of the pots, the alkaline glazed pots, and he was really interested. But here was this tradition that was right under his nose, and he didn't know anything about it. And so he was directed towards Berlin Craig, and the way in which he learned was simply by observing.
Okay.
There was not this sort of direct teaching that happened. He would simply be a fly on the wall and he'd watch.
Wow.
And he would go with Berlin to gather the clay and to make the glazes. The glaze included crushed glass bottles, ash from the ground, from previous burnings, for example. And so that's how he learned what to do, in addition to the forms.
So some people might be familiar with the name Jugtown.
Yes.
What is Jugtown? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so Jugtown is more in the Seagrove area of North Carolina, so it's farther east. And people familiar with Jugtown, it's one of the best known folk pottery workshops in the country. Okay. And again, it was these simple forms, but it started as this revival and was started by the Busbys, who were from Raleigh, so they were regarded as outsiders. They started collecting this orange ware pottery that they were really interested in. It was a regional tradition, and so they were trying to trace the tradition and discovered that it was largely lost. And so they started hiring potters for Jugtown to make the traditional wares again. Today, Jugtown still continues. It's owned by the Owens family. Okay. And we have examples from Jugtown from Vernon, the father, his wife, Pamela, and their son, Travis, as well as their daughter. So
Jugtown really is partly responsible for keeping the living history of this craft going, is that
Absolutely.
right?
And living tradition is it's the fundamental idea underlying this show. That these aren't just traditions, they're not static, and they're not in the past. They're living traditions, they're ongoing, and they are, as traditions always do, they're always changing.
So for more information on the pottery of the U.S. South and the Culture Pass, head over to casa.com.